So I have a quick one here for you today. I was hoping to make a video about, so we're at the TIG welder using TIG brazing to attach mild steel, stainless steel, whatever, together, and brazing it with just plain copper wire like you'd find in Romex. I really wanted to show like a video of doing the TIG brazing across there because I thought that'd be really neat, but I realized I didn't have a camera that I could actually look at a weld puddle like. So I have an extra camera. It's actually an old smartphone, right? It's like a S7 active. And this is fine, but I can't see the weld puddle itself. But I do have a couple of these guys. These are shade 5 welding lenses, so you can't see through it on the camera, but these are pretty dark. And this should allow the camera to be able to view the weld going on. So I need a way to hold this, add some shielding in front of it so the heat doesn't destroy it, as well as to hold this lens in front of it just like that, and potentially hold multiple lenses. So what I came up with is this thing. This is just 2 3D printed pieces of plastic. This holds the phone just like this, slips in there. I decided I'd just use a rubber band to hold the thing together, so I can just go over top like that, pretty easy. And then there's these slots on the back. There's actually like 3 different slots, so you can just take this lens and it's centered right over top of the camera right there. So you can just slot these in here, and you can fit up to 3 lenses in there. So you could have potentially a lot of shade if you needed to. And then there's this piece, pardon the terrible welding. I always have trouble with aluminum. But this is a 1/4-20 thread that's tapped in the bottom because standard camera thread is 1/4-20. So that's what I had it set to. And then I realized, okay, well, this is a steel tabletop. I wish I could just have a magnet base to hold this thing down to look at whatever I'm welding on. And I had one of these guys that I got from China, from AliExpress. It's like a Noga arm knockoff thing, and so it has all these joints that all are really floppy. Then you just twist this one thing and it's super rigid. It's great for, it's really made for indicators, but it works great for this. And I need an adapter for it to get this attached onto there. So what I came up with for that was this little screw. It's just a 1/4-20 socket head cap screw, and I turned the end down so it fits right inside of this indicator base. I'm not really sure what these things are, like 6 millimeters or something, but that fits pretty well. So this is in the way. Right. So this thing just threads into the bottom here, like that, and I can take an Allen wrench to fit in the bottom and just tighten this thing up the rest of the way. It doesn't need to be too tight, just enough to hold it in. And then this fits right in the base here, like that. Actually, yeah, like this. You just tighten that thing up, and then all of a sudden, boom, have the camera, can hold it at whatever angle I want, and there we go. This should work pretty well. I'll just take this off. We can spin it around, look at it some more. So yeah, let's see how this works for getting some nice shots. All right, so I've got my experimental setup here for the camera. So I did this a little bit ago, and I had a really hard time holding the torch and changing the settings on the phone at the same time. So I've got the torch clamped down to a block. I have just a test piece of metal right here. You see what I was messing around on there before. Got the tungsten a reasonable distance away from there. That seemed to work pretty well. I've got my welder set to 65 amps so I can run this for a while without the puddle getting absolutely massive or having any issues with heat buildup or whatever. All right, next in the line, got the camera right here. This is set up. It's got the lens in it right there, set up pointing at the workpiece. It's on 2 zoom level. Then I have this tripod right here that I'm going to mount this GoPro on that I'm filming with right now. And yeah, let's get to it. Let's get some video. So my goal here is to be able to take great pictures and great videos while I'm welding, and so I can wear my welding helmet and I can just watch what I'm working on and then have the camera film that and end up nice. Because I don't want to be futzing around with the camera settings while I'm trying to weld, right? That's not going to work. So to get the camera to take nice pictures, to take nice video, I need to get two settings right. The first is brightness or exposure, and the second is focus of the camera. So most cameras, including the S7 smartphone camera that I have, they can automatically select those. So when you're taking pictures of whatever out in public, it's no big deal. It just figures out the exposure and it figures out the focus, and everything is nice. But it really struggles to get all that stuff right when I have a super bright thing right in the middle of the screen and then everything else around it is like black, super dark. It doesn't do well with that at all. And I also noticed with this camera, if it can't get the exposure right, it can't focus right either. So I need to get the exposure correct so it can automatically focus. So I can go into Pro mode on my camera and I can say, okay, you have to be exactly this exposure. And then it just stays at that exposure and it allows the camera to automatically focus. And that seemed to work out pretty well for me. So I would set the exposure, manual exposure, and then let it do the autofocus so I can move along in the weld and it follows the focus to where I'm at. That works pretty well. So the process I have set up for that, I basically select one or two of the lenses or the filters. So most of these videos were just the single shade 5 filter. And then I need to set the exposure, just manually set the exposure there. And then it lets the autofocus focus everything, and it works out pretty well. So this also depends on how close the camera is to the arc that's going on, as well as the amperage. So if I'm welding at 50 amps, that'll be a whole lot dimmer than if I'm welding at 200 amps, for instance. So what you're seeing here is one of the best videos I got with the TIG torch just held in that little clamp thing. So this is a decent amount of exposure. It's in focus. You can see kind of like the weld puddle. I'm just kind of jiggling it around there. I think that looks all right. Now this video is one of the best shots I got of just doing some TIG welding in a straight line. Please feel free to make fun of my welding as much as you want, because you know I will be. So kind of in conclusion, I think that my video settings are not as good as they could be. I'm certainly not up to the level of like This Old Tony or Jody from Welding Tips and Tricks. They have some awesome videos, but I could be a lot worse. So I think I have a decent enough setup to try to make that video about brazing with just bare Romex wire on steel. And I think to make this better, maybe I could use a real camera rather than just a smartphone camera. Something that has a higher dynamic range, so it has a bigger difference between the lightest part of an image, the brightest part, and the darkest part. So I could see more of the arc, and I could see more of the surrounding area, just like you can when you're watching it in person through the welding helmet. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.